Hello, listeners. This is Kat, and welcome back to Put Your Hands Up Podfics. This will be the continuation of Watch Your Heroes Fall. This will be part 36, chapter 41, entitled Phase 4, Song 12. It's All Right by Mother Mother. The last thing Hitoshi expected was for people to fight over his custody. He had broken the news, very quietly, just to Mr. Yamada at dinner, which, honestly, he should have known better because Mr. Yamada immediately screeched an unholy screech of vengeance and swore that he and Mr. Aizawa would get custody of him ASAP, which Hitoshi was kind of grateful for, but also felt like a whole lot in 3 seconds, and so he tried to say that it was fine and they didn't have to do that. But by the time those words were out of his mouth, Magne had stomped over and claimed custody of Hitoshi, and then Cumbers pointed out that the legal work of Magne getting custody might be messy, and then Mr. Yamada pulled out his phone and made a phone call to someone, and Mr. Aizawa was right next to Hitoshi all of a sudden, saying, "If you're uncomfortable, just say the word. But we really would like to give you a safe place to be." And Izuku's mom was butting in, saying that she had experience with children and she could take in another, or two, with a glance to Himiko, no problem. And Hitoshi was left wondering how he started the afternoon with a phone call from his foster parents saying he should find new living arrangements, and ending the evening in Mr. Aizawa and Mr. Yamada's legal custody. His caseworker, Mr. Inoshita, scheduled an appointment with him next month to check how he's settling in. He's a nice guy, and he said he was happy for Hitoshi on the phone, but he's always booked out and overworked, so that's the soonest he could come by. Shoto, of course, has 2 older siblings, legal adults who could nab him up. Fuyumi and Natsuo came late to the Friday night dinner, and they were both as unbelievably awkward as the rest of the Todoroki kids. They lingered by the door until Bakugo, Mitsuki, and Midnight both beckoned them in and bade them to sit down, eat something. Fuyumi had hugged Shoto to her, and that bastard cried like Hitoshi's never seen. It was uncanny. He kept apologizing to her, and Natsuo kept telling him not to apologize. According to Izuku, the 3 of them met Dabi outside to drop that bomb on them. He didn't get to see that, but he kind of wished he could have. But last night's dinner aside, it's time for the only parentless minor left to get some legal guardianship, and Momo's parents are sitting at the kitchen island sipping tea and making small talk with Miss Inko, while Momo tries to coax Himiko down into the kitchen to meet them. Hitoshi imagines it's quite the battle. "I'm just so glad to have her back," Momo's dad says. "Seeing her on the screen, all dressed up as a villain." Momo's mom nods. "It was like we'd lost her." She dabs her tears with a handkerchief. "But now she's back, and she seems well. She seems just the same as when she left." Miss Inko nods. "She's a sturdy young woman. She wouldn't have been able to do this otherwise." Miss Yaoyorozu nods, sniffling behind the handkerchief. Yes, that's our little Momo. Oh, when I think about what Uwabame said." Her husband rests a comforting hand on her knee. Miss Yaoyorozu dabs at her tears again. "Oh, but forgive me for going on. How was your Izuku holding up? He was so eloquent in court. I was shocked he had never considered the profession seriously before." Miss Inko blushes at the praise. "He's certainly something," she murmurs. "He's absolutely exhausted, the poor thing," she tells the Yaoyorozus. "But I'm just glad he came back. I'm glad they all came back. Even the villains, strange as it feels to say." The Yaoyorozus both nod. "I know just how you mean," Mr. Yaoyorozu says. 2 months ago, I would have, pardon my language, I would have stepped on their graves like sidewalk tiles." His loud smile softens to something tender. "Now I just want to thank them. They kept our little Momo safe for us." "Mother! Father!" Momo calls, finally coming down the stairs. "Good morning." She runs into their arms, and they fold her into a hug that reeks of healthy family bonds. "I know I have a lot to explain to you, and a lot to answer for." "There is nothing you need to answer for," Mr. Yaoyorozu says. And Mrs. Yaoyorozu says, "We're just happy you came home." Momo's resolve stays firm, and dams back the tears those words bring to her eyes. "Can I ask you for a favor?" she says softly. "If you grant it, I'll never ask for anything again. I'll do whatever you want me to, but just—" "Darling, what has you so worked up?" Mrs. Yaoyorozu says, releasing Momo a little to search her expression. Momo sniffles and cranes her neck. "Himiko, come over here, please." And Himiko, in one of the frilliest dresses Momo made for her, hair in little neatly braided buns, shuffles out from the stairwell into the kitchen with her eyes trained on the floor. Her hands are bunched in the fabric of the dress. "Hello, Mrs. Yaoyorozu. Mr. Yaoyorozu. I'm Toga Himiko. It's nice to meet you." She glances up, sees Miss Inko and Hitoshi more familiar faces, and relaxes a little. "It's wonderful to meet you as well, Himiko," Miss Yaoyorozu says softly. She doesn't yet understand what's being asked. "Mother," Momo says, "Himiko doesn't have parents." "No, I have 'em," Himiko cries, as if the Yaoyorozus might fault her for not having them. "They just don't want me back." "Don't want—" Mr. Yaoyorozu echoes, eyebrows pinching around the Botox in its forehead. Mrs. Yaoyorozu has caught on now. "Well, that just will not do. This can't be borne. Daisaku, dearest, please text our lawyer. Mixed condo. Not Mr. Haihara. The paperwork to be drawn up by the afternoon, and of course, we'll have to speak to Nezu about any legal issues that should arise from our taking dearest little Himiko's custody." Momo's eyes light up. "So you'll—" Mrs. Yaoyorozu extends a glaringly cold eye upon Momo. "Well, our daughter can't be seen with a homeless girl." And then she winks and she laughs, and she says to Himiko, "Himiko, please, if you'll join us, I would love to invite you to have dinner at our home. We have several rooms, you can pick your favorite, and we'll have some furniture ready for the room by next weekend." Himiko can't stop staring at Mrs. and Mr. Yaoyorozu. Her eyes are wide. Hitoshi can feel Miss Inko ready to jump up and give her a hug from across the island. Himiko says, You want me. You want me." And Mr. Yaoyorozu stands up and says, "Why wouldn't we want the girl who helped Momo change the world?" By the time everyone is in homeroom on Monday, the high-strung emotions of the weekend, the court case, and the homecoming and the apologies and confessions and custody conferrals have wound down. A popped jack-in-the-box relaxing into its casing, a pen unclicking, soda fizz sizzling out into a glass. The league's got some training they're doing, prep to be teachers' aides or something, who really knows. Class 1A is just happy to be whole again, with the additions of Hitoshi and Himiko. But of course, not everyone is excited about how the court case turned out, and any school has a couple of motherfuckers in it, even a hero school as prestigious as UA. And so it happens that when Hitoshi and Himiko are walking to join the class at lunch, after Hitoshi showed Himiko where the bathrooms are, they get stopped by a boy with dark teal hair and about 5 of his friends. "Where do you think you're going?" he asks them. And Himiko says, "To lunch?" But Hitoshi's seen guys like this before. In fact, he's pretty sure he's seen this guy in particular before. And he says, "Come on, Himiko. Don't justify it with a response." And he grabs her hand to pull her past them. Except Teal Hair and his buddies block their exit route, and Hitoshi sighs, and Himiko is trying to hold back the fight or flight of boys trapping you in a deserted hallway. Hitoshi says, "Dude, do you really gotta?" And one of Teal Hair buddies says, "Villains can't go to hero schools." And it shouldn't hurt as much as it does, but Hitoshi bites the inside of his cheek to keep everything inside him locked down, and Himiko's whole face falls. "But," Himiko says, "but we're not villains. You saw the judge. She said we weren't guilty." And Teal Hair makes a mocking gesture with his hands. "Blah, blah, blah. That judge was paid off. Had to have been. You and all those other villains shouldn't be here. I'm gonna make sure." "Make sure of what?" Kirishima says, right behind Teal Hair. Teal Hair visibly freezes, eyes wide, smirk petrified onto his face. Kirishima says, "Oh, you're Genta, from General Studies, right?" Genta does not turn around to confirm or deny this, but the way he swallows around his fear makes it pretty clear. Kirishima towers over him, still smiling. "Yeah, Denki told us about you, Genta. Hitoshi here doesn't seem to remember you, but Denki definitely did, and I remember what my friends tell me." There is one very short, terrifying pause that smells like ozone and feels like static before lightning, and then Kirishima says, "Do you understand what I'm saying? Because trust me, bro, I'm being way more reasonable about this than, say, Katsuki or Ochako. Sure would be crazy if they were already on their way over here, wouldn't it, bro?" Genta flinches, slides sideways out of Kirishima's shadow, and makes a big show of how much Hitoshi and Himiko aren't worth it, just in time for Bakugo and Denki to walk through the cafeteria doors into the hallway, and then Genta and his 5 friends book it. "The fuck's their problem?" Bakugo asks. "Is that Genta?" Denki asks Hitoshi. "Your old classmate?" Hitoshi is still trying to process what the fuck just happened. "Bro, you really don't remember him?" Kirishima laughs. Denki folds his arms and frowns. "Gods, man, what'd I do to that guy if he ever said some dumb shit again?" Hitoshi looks at him. "Huh?" He only vaguely remembers Genta because Genta was one of the majority of kids in class that mocked Hitoshi relentlessly for his quirk, Comments he tried to tune out. Comments that only got worse after he made it so far in the sports festival. Denki drops a hand on Hitoshi's shoulder. And you guys call me the dumbass. I don't associate with dumbasses, Bakugo says while staying right where he is, which is as close as Bakugo gets to affirmations, Hitoshi supposes. But Himiko, who had faded silently to the background, finally restarts her motor to sprint at Kirishima and wrap her arms around him in a hug. Thank you, she cries, and Bakugo barely has time to duck out of range before Kirishima's hugging her back so hard her feet lift off the ground. Sure thing, Himiko, he says. Any time. Bakugo gives Hitoshi a look that clearly is asking what the fuck happened, and Hitoshi shrugs inscrutably. The last thing he wants to do is sick Bakugo and some idiot, but he can't help a small smile as they walk back to lunch. Himiko actually doesn't walk. She has decided Kirishima is her new favorite, and he offered a shoulder ride that she giddily accepted. When they got back to the table, Ochaku floats Himiko off Kirishima's shoulders and everyone sits back down. Ojiro asks what took them so long in the bathroom. Everyone gives non-committal answers, and they eat their lunch. It's Wednesday night when Hisashi gets a phone call. It wakes the both of them up, and Hisashi answers it still half asleep, then sits up so fast Shota almost falls off the other side of the bed. I understand. We'll be right there. Is his mother? I understand. Yes. Yes. Thank you. Everything okay? Get your clothes on, Sho. Izuku's in the hospital. The what? Oh ho ho! That's not even the worst of it. Get some pants on. I'll tell you in the car. Shota has had time to calm down by the time they're shown into a curtained-off section of the emergency room. Izuku is still awaiting treatment, so he's covered in dry, flaking blood and squinting his eyes shut. So he can say very calmly, instead of with the high-strung panic that he believes might be more appropriate. Did you ever think juggling villainy and vigilantism was maybe a bridge too far? And the kid doesn't miss a beat, of course, just says, Not vigilantism. Didn't use a quirk. Don't throw a law book at me, problem child. Hisashi interrupts. What were you doing, breaking out of house arrest? Those anklets aren't required by law, Midoriya mutters, eyes still squeezed shut. I read the judge's sentencing after. Nezu just wants to keep tabs on us. And a damn good thing, too, Shota cries, string finally snapping. Sho, Hisashi murmurs. He twines their fingers together. Comfort. Shota takes several long breaths to remind himself the kid is alive. Everyone lived through this hell. Oboro is sleeping back at the dorms, and he's got Midoriya to thank. Shota sits down next to Midoriya's legs on the bed. What happened, kid? Midoriya cracks one eye open. Tears immediately spill out, re-wetting the blood on his cheek, and when Midoriya scrubs with his sleeve to dry his face, the sleeve pulls away, dyed red. Other than me leading you on wild goose chases every night for the past few months? Shota gives him a laugh. Other than that, tonight. Is she okay? Midoriya asks. The lady, Miss Watanabe. She's all right, Hisashi says, sitting next to Shota. The nurse said she'll need some stitches for the arm, and they want to keep her here for observation just in case her previous concussion flares up, but she'll be fine. And the kids, Midoriya presses. Kids? Nona and Noriko, are they okay? He suddenly sits up. The cops said they'd give them a ride. The EMTs couldn't have them in the ambulance. Are they okay? He tries to sit up, and Hisashi nudges him back down. I'll go figure out where the kids went and bring them to Mrs. Watanabe, he says. Sho, don't fight with the nurses. He kisses Shota on the cheek, pats Midoriya's head, and leaves to search for the kids. Shota runs a hand over his face and checks his phone. It's 1:37. Midoriya's mom gets off her shift at Takoba General Hospital in 20 minutes, and then she'll see the missed call from Kurasa Mercy Hospital and rush over here, probably breaking several traffic laws. Hisashi was going 100 in the 40. He texts Inko and tells her that her son is fine, and he and Hisashi are with him. He hopes she'll drive at a more reasonable speed, just to save herself from an accident. He looks back to Midoriya, who is crying enough now that his face is nearly clean. Where the fuck are the nurses? You ready to tell me what happened tonight? Shota asks. Midoriya peeks at him sideways, sighs, and says, It won't happen again. That's comforting to hear, but not what I asked. Midoriya's brows crinkle in uncharacteristic annoyance, but then they smooth out again. I helped Mrs. Watanabe before. Her wife is bad. She had taken the kids grocery shopping, and I found her collapsed on the side of the road at 9 p.m. Noriko said they'd been stuck there for a while. That's the head injury she had before. I got her to a hospital and gave her my WhatsApp. If she ever needed help again, or if she ever wanted to get out. Tonight she tried to leave. It didn't go well. Nona texted me on her mom's phone. Why didn't you get help? Shota asks. Call the cops, bring a friend, bring me. And admit I've been doing vigilante work less than a week after the court case. Fair point. Shota concedes. He looks Midoriya up and down. Mrs. Watanabe's wife did this. Midoriya nods. Strength enhancement quirk. She was drunk, I think. Does it hurt? No. Shota knows it's a lie, but isn't sure if it would be helpful to call him on it. Found him, Hisashi says, coming back through the curtain. They were here. An old woman waiting for her husband in the reception area was keeping an eye on them. They're with their mom now. All three of them say thank you. Midoriya shrugs. Anyone would have. Hisashi laughs. Would have broken house arrest and gotten beat up for some random lady and her kids. Unlikely. He sits back down on the bed. Are the nurses not here yet? Must be a busy night. What hurts, little listener? My forehead, Midoriya says. And my leg. And my chest. Well, we can just amputate all that. Hisashi sighs easily. What? Kidding. Just a joke, little listener. Hisashi glances at Shota with an expression easily interpreted. He's stressed as shit. Shota doesn't get time to respond before his phone buzzes with an incoming call. He was expecting this, and he steps out of the curtained area to take it. Miss Midoriya. Shota! Oh, thank goodness you picked up. Hospital lines are sent straight from hell to torment worried mothers. How is Izuku? Is he all right? What happened? He's fine, Shota starts with, because that was the first thing he wanted to know. He left campus to help a woman and her kids. The nurses haven't gotten to check on him yet. Inko scoffs. That's a Wednesday night at Kurasa Mercy for you. Which is incomprehensible to Shota, but he reminds himself that she is a nurse, and she would know. Yes, well, he's got a cut above his eye, and he's saying his leg and ribs hurt, but I haven't gotten a chance to check on it. Don't you check on it, Inko snaps suddenly. Shota feels the maternal energy humming through the phone line and feels spontaneously compelled to get his elbows off the table or something. Inko continues. Half of what I see in ER shifts are injuries made worse by heroes checking on it. You wait for a trained nurse, or me. I bet Hisashi's there too, huh? Well, I'll let you— Excuse you, ma'am. I had the right of way. Sorry. I'll let you stop him from re-breaking a bone or something, and I'll be there in 5. Shota does not point out that Toga General is at least a 15-minute drive, because that would elongate a conversation that is already distracting Inko from keeping traffic laws. He politely says that he'll see her soon, and he hangs up with a bit of the fear of the gods in him. Izuku, baby, you know I love you more than anything, but if you keep doing this to me, I am taking up hero work myself so you'll keep yourself safe. But, Mom, she— I know. She needed your help. I'm not asking you to not be a hero. Just be safer about it. Inko laughs. What was the point of all those laws you made everyone sign? All the stunts you did, articles you wrote, events you organized. Baby, what was the point if your own mama doesn't get to know you're safe? All right, listeners, this concludes Chapter 41 of Watch Your Heroes Fall. Chapter 42, the last and final chapter, will be up next. Hope you all are still enjoying, and as always, thank you so much for listening.